Welcome to Wild Worcestershire, the podcast from Worcestershire Wildlife Trust. Each episode will explore the wild corners of our county. From ancient woodlands to whispering wetlands, along the way we'll meet the people working to protect these places and uncover the hidden lives of the wildlife that calls them home. This is a space for stories, for connection and for celebrating nature right on our doorstep. So come with us and discover the wild side of Worcestershire. Hello and welcome to the Wild Worcestershire podcast. I'm your host, Lee Robinson. Now in today's episode we're exploring the Worcestershire Wildlife Trust's education work and in particular the Wilder Schools project. Now education has been at the very heart of the Trust from the very beginning, and for decades it's been a core part of its mission. It's all about helping children connect with nature and understanding why that matters. So from hands-on learning at Lower Smite farm where Kat welcomes school groups, to Lucy taking that learning directly into schools, this programme goes far beyond a single visit. It's about building a longer term connection with nature in the classroom, in the school grounds and out in the wild. So today we're going to hear about that journey and how all that works in practice. We're going to hear about the impact that it's having on children and teachers and why early experiences in nature can be so powerful. So come with me and let's find out more. You find me here today in the garden at Smite, and I'm with the team that run education here at Worcestershire Wildlife Trust. So first of all, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name's Kat Terry and I'm the Senior Wilder Schools Officer here at the Wildlife Trust.
Hello, my name is Lucy Thurkle and I'm the Wilder Learning Development Officer.
Okay, two slightly different jobs but in the same department. Yeah. Okay. So we'll start with you then, Kat. To start us off. So for the listeners, can you tell us what does the education team do?
So we've got a team of 3 of us here at Worcestershire Wildlife Trust. There's myself, there's Lucy and there's also Hayley. We run trips at Lower Smite for school children, predominantly Key Stage 1 and 2, and then Lucy goes out into schools and does some outreach work within her project as well.
Right. So you're predominantly in
Yes.
sort of in-house, so the schools come here to see us, and you're predominantly outreach, so you go out to the schools. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your side of the project?
Absolutely. So my Wilder Schools project is a 3-year project and I'm nearly halfway through. And the purpose of it really is to help to embed outdoor learning within the existing curriculum by helping school staff to feel more confident and competent to take more of their learning outside.
Right, okay. So as you probably hear today, we're in the garden and I'm stood by the pond at the moment, and it's a beautifully sunny day and it's actually quite warm now. It was a cold start but it's quite nice. So this is an area that you sometimes bring school groups into. What sort of activities do you do in the garden with the school groups?
It depends which trip we're running, but we will do scavenger hunts in the gardens looking for rocks in our rocks and soils trip. In different areas of the garden their children will do some planting, they'll try to make soils, they'll look at the difference in the plants, they will look at plants that are good for different creatures, so maybe looking at mini beasts and their habitats. So there's a really big range of things that they can do. Sometimes they might see a newt in the pond. When we do pond dipping we tend to do it on a different pond on the site, but they do look in this one as well. Yeah. So that they generally start their mornings in this kind of area before they go up to other different areas of the farm.
Well, so you could sort of say it's like is this sort of like a stepping stone, if you like, to something bigger each time that they move on to a different area of the farm. Yeah. Okay. So can you tell me why was this initiative needed now, and what problem or gap in the education sector were you seeing?
Well, we've had school trips being run here at Lower Smite Farm for decades, and we notice that, especially recently, young people are having a more severe disconnect. So their nature connectedness is not as strong as it would have been. And it's not just for our young people as well, it is for the adults as well. We know from tons of research the importance of going outside, spending time in nature, caring about it so that you can then take positive actions to be able to help it. But it's really good for you. It helps with knowledge retention, it helps everybody to regulate their feelings, and we know that being able to have those tangible, visceral experiences really makes your learning come alive, and it helps it to stick, and it helps it to feel more like a real thing that's going on. So the school trips that have been being run for such a long time have been so successful that we, as the Wildlife Trust, were able to create my job role, which is a bit of a satellite to the work that happens here at Lower Smite Farm. And I'm in a massively privileged position to have the opportunity to go into schools and help to embed what so many school staff already know and feel about what's going to be beneficial for their young children and for themselves. But it needed to happen now, really, because we know about the climate crisis, we know about young people not moving around enough, not being healthy enough, having a lot of time with screens. And we also want to make the point that we don't see indoors or technology as the enemy. It's not a case of us and them, either or. We can incorporate these sorts of things, and with so many aspects of life, it needs to be holistic. There needs to be balance. And we're hopefully in a position to be able to realign lifestyles to just include a little bit more nature and be a little bit more wild.
Lovely. That's great. Thank you. So we've just walked along the new accessibility path, which is here at Smite. It's very crunchy, and it's been put in place to open access to areas for people of all abilities. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
The path has been put in recently so that we can make our woodland and pond area far more accessible for visitors and children who haven't necessarily got the mobility that some of their peers have. It's made it a lot easier for children with wheelchairs, or even families on our family days who've got pushchairs, to be able to access these areas of our site. It's been really beneficial, and we love the fact that we've now got this ability to make this area a lot more open for more people.
That's great, thank you. So moving across, the ambition is for 1 in 4 schools to be taking action for wildlife by 2030. What does taking action for wildlife actually look like in practice?
It's a very good question, and it's one that we'd like to realign ourselves to make sure that we're having the most impact in the most positive way that we can. Really, what we want is for people to care about the spaces around them, and to make sure that they are thinking nature first, and making sure that even through small changes we are making responsible choices. So it doesn't necessarily mean that taking action for nature is that everything is immediately rewilded, and we want to help people to feel upskilled, but you don't need to know everything. But our role within the education team is to help with a few of those identification skills, to know a bit more about the habitats, to know a bit more about the needs of some of the creatures and the wildlife around us and some of the plants, so that if you know that little bit more, it helps you to care that little bit more. And then if you care more, you do more. I've had lots of lovely experiences with children when I've gone outside, and we might be doing a session on different habitats. It might be a year 2 class, and they're learning about different places where animals live, and we're comparing who lives in the long grass, who lives underneath logs, who lives in the pond. And sometimes you'll start off by explaining to children, this is a woodlouse. It's actually a terrestrial crustacean. It's on land, but it has gills, and it needs to stay nice and damp. And oh, how very interesting, it's a woodlouse. But once I tell them a few facts, it's got 14 legs, and it's got a brood pouch for the mum to look after her babies, and all sorts of bits and pieces, I will then hand it to a child, and all the little hands come out to go, oh, can I have it, I want to hold it. And they want that tactile experience, they want to engage with nature. But my favourite bit is when they then turn to somebody else, and it's not just a woodlouse anymore, and they say, would you like to see my woodlouse? and they'll tell the next person a fact. I've had a child look after a harvestman before, and I was saying it's not actually a spider, but it is an arachnid, and can you see it's just got this lumpy body, it hasn't got that head and abdomen thorax that a spider would have. And they took it from me, a child who hates spiders, wouldn't touch a spider, but as soon as you say, it's not a spider, it's a harvestman, they had it in their hands and would go to the teaching assistant and go, look at my harvestman. And then when you tell them, this is what it needs, this is the space they need, we don't want to move all of these logs and rocks because that's where they like to live. And then they'll then not necessarily police the other children, but they will share their new knowledge with other children and say, my harvestman lives there, so we need to be careful not to move the log. So taking action for nature can just mean leave an area of long grass. It can mean have a deadwood pile. Deadwood's so important for so many different creatures, definitely larval stages. It could be putting in a pond. It could be considering not using pesticides or making more responsible choices to do with your plastic consumption. All these little things will add up together, and all these little actions will really help to make a place that wildlife and humans can thrive together.
That's great. I was just getting slightly distracted because it was there was some bird song from over there a moment ago, and my ears picked up on it, and I'm pretty sure that was a great tit that I just heard. So it's that kind of teacher sound, and I just heard it just over there, and I was picking it up, and I was thinking, I'm hoping the mics pick that up because that's really cool. Yeah, I love it. And for the listeners, we're actually on the path at the moment. We've got the orchard to one side of the path, and we've got the forest school area to the other, and we're just going to go and take a little wander now into the forest school area, which I think is my favourite area of the site. I was here a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, with the wildlife watchers on a Sunday, and they were doing some really cool things in there, and so we're going to have a little wander into there. So we've just moved now into the forest school area, and it's a treed area. There's a lovely dome and a little tunnel over in the corner. We've got the fire pit area and some logs for seating, and the area is absolutely alive with birdsong. In actual fact, there was a flock of birds just flew over really quickly then. I didn't see what they were. But it's absolutely alive here at the moment, and there are a few insects buzzing about I can see as well. But so going back to the site itself then, what does a typical visit to Lower Smite Farm look like for a school group?
So it very much depends on what trip the school has decided that they want to undertake with us. That they will normally arrive in their coach about 10 o'clock in the morning. They'll come and settle in the barn and the stables, have a bit of a snack, make sure that they're all ready for the day. We'll give them a bit of a briefing and an overview of what they're going to be doing. But then pretty much as soon as we can, we'll get them outside doing their first activity. Quite often that happens in our wildlife garden, where we will do a kind of introductory scavenger hunt or a game. Then we'll maybe move out into different areas of the site. So if we were doing a rocks and soils trip, they do some experiments back in our stables. But on a mini beast trip, they might come down to this area in the woodland or to one of the ponds where they might do some pond dipping. If they're in this area, we'll do things like mini beast hunt with our marvellous mini beast trip. Or if we were doing a rotters and decayers trip, which is a key stage 1 trip, they use the willow dome, where we put a big tarpaulin over it and hang some woolen mini beasts inside, and then the children can imagine what it is to be an invertebrate that lives underground. Our rocks and soils trip will go to one of our fields, and they do soil auguring, which is always really, really popular because they find it really fun. And it's really good because rocks and soils can be a topic which children find quite difficult because it's not necessarily the most interesting, but we're really trying to bring it alive so that they can have that enjoyment and then they take more from it when they go back to school.
So it's interesting to hear about the activities of the school groups when they come to site, but when we're off site things change because the environments change. Some schools have forest schools, some schools don't. So can you tell us a little bit about the kinds of environments that you work in the schools and the kinds of things you do when you're there?
Absolutely. So it is always a pleasure to go into schools to meet the staff and meet the children and to see the sort of outside space that they're working with. There is a real disparity between the sorts of outside spaces that different schools have, and they are aware of it. And for some schools there are things that we can do about that. It might be that there is a large field that's just utility grassland that gets mown, and so we have conversations with contractors about, can we please leave some marginal areas to be longer grass, which is a really simple, easy thing to do. But for some schools their space is really limited, and part of my role is to help to make recommendations of how we can use that space so that it's effective for the children for what they need to do, so that it's still got space for sports day, they've still got space to play at lunch breaks, but that we have pockets of spaces that can be better for wildlife, and that also then, if we are creating that sort of habitat, it means when they're going out and surveying the space and using the information for their lessons, they actually have lots of different things that they can see. Because if they're going out, even in a forest school session, which is different to outdoor learning, but there will still be lots of crossover in terms of the sorts of skills, the sorts of areas that we use, and the appreciation that we would like them to have. But if they're seeing the same slug every week, it would be quite nice to maybe increase the diversity so that they can be excited to find lots of different things. So part of what I do when I've met up with my new cohort, because I'll have a group of schools throughout the calendar year. So I had 5 schools last year, 6 schools this year, and we have a look at the site and they tell me about what they already do with outdoor learning and the sorts of things that they're hoping to be able to achieve. And it's really lovely to be able to see how proud schools are of their outside spaces, but also quite often they will say, I'm sorry, it's not quite tidy, or it's not quite how we want it, or I've bought something to put in but I haven't had a chance because there isn't time. So I cannot wave a magic wand and give them more time, but I can help with some of our wonderful volunteers who come and help, or having conversations with senior leadership, or being able to assist them to do the sorts of work that they'd like to do in their outside spaces. So anything that we can do to give these educators who are passionate about the outdoors enough time and enough help with resources to be able to create somewhere special for the children to want to go, and these habitats for wildlife to thrive, then means that it will all go towards them having a greater outdoor learning experience.
Right. Okay, lovely, thank you. So we've just moved over now, we're by the pond, so we've got the forest school behind us, and we've got lots of pond skaters at the moment skipping across the surface, and there's a lot of birds. We've just had some geese fly over as well, which was quite exciting. But sort of thinking about activities now on site, what kinds of activities have the biggest impact or spark the strongest reactions from children?
I think if we're talking about trips here at Lower Smite Farm, I think we're stood by the pond. Pond dipping is really kind of an experience that lots of children don't have the opportunity for elsewhere, and they love having the opportunity to be able to actually move the nets gently through the water, look in the trays and see what it is they found, look at the identification cards. Oh, what's this exciting thing? Oh, it's got 3 tails, or it's got big long legs, or it's skidding along the top of the water, and it's things that they wouldn't normally see. So I think pond dipping is really a special moment for a lot of children. I think in the winter months, when we're doing rocks and soils, they really love the soil auguring on the field. Again, it's something they don't get the chance to do very often. The chance to be given something that cuts through the soil that they're going to do themselves in little teams. It's kind of like almost a competition of who can dig the deepest, what finds can they find in there, is there bits of charcoal, is there bits of brick, and it's things that they wouldn't necessarily get to do anywhere else. So I think those kinds of activities are really, really popular with the children, because they are those core memories that they don't get somewhere else, and I think that's what sticks with them going forwards.
So same question to yourself, when you're out in the schools, what sort of activities really pique their interest?
Well, it's a pleasure because I get to work with the curriculum, and so there are lots of different opportunities, because I look at the existing planning and work with the school staff to see where on the already brilliant teaching and wonderful learning that's going on, can we maybe squeeze things and put in a few nuggets of outdoor learning? So it's a really varied experience, but we do have...
we got the geese back there. You can hear them, so they're just... we've been upstaged by geese. Yeah. Oh, here they come. Here they come. I don't know whether you can hear this. Go on, make a noise.
There we go.
Oh, that's perfect. So there's two geese just flown overhead. That's amazing. Sorry, carry on. I'm a bit distracted.
No, we like distractions. We like those wonderful moments for nature. And it's brilliant to be able to give school staff the opportunity so that when things like that happen, you can just go, OK, let's take a moment and go, actually, this is much more interesting. We want to see them. They're coming in.
I think they were thinking about landing, but they've just... no, they've gone again. Oh, no, they're swinging around. Are they coming back? I'm trying to see what type of geese they are. Are they Canada's by the look of it, aren't they? They're off. They're off. They've interrupted and now they've gone. Anyway, back to where we were.
Where were we?
I don't know.
We were talking about lots of different opportunities for lots of different learning experiences, and it needs to be led by the school staff and what they're ready to do, what they're willing to do, and what they have time and space, resources, ratios, that sort of thing. But sometimes we will have sessions where we'll include a scavenger hunt, and it's the same information that you would have been receiving inside on paper, but it's going outside and finding it for yourself and moving around the environment and just having time to engage with nature whilst doing the normal learning. A lot of the things that we try to do is to encourage nature vocabulary and a few more ID skills, but it all needs to be linked to the existing curriculum. So I will present school staff with 3 or 4 or 5 ideas of what we could possibly do based on their unit of teaching. It could be a music lesson, it could be maths outdoors, it could be geography, art. They'll say, this is what we want to be looking at with you. So I will then present them with various ideas of activities, of things that we could do. We had one lovely example of a music lesson in year 1 that was to do with pitch. And they were looking at animals that live on a coral reef. The original lesson was associating pitch to different animals based on how high or low they live in the water. So we turned it into a pond dipping session, and so we had pond skaters who were really high because they're up here at the top, and then really low down water hoglouse because they walk along the bottom. And so the children then created a little story to do with the interactions of the animals in the pond whilst looking at the real animals, but had then, after watching the animals and making notes about it, moved away and were using their glockenspiels to then assign a different pitch, using all of the musical vocabulary that they needed, but also increasing their nature knowledge and their nature connectedness as well.
Ooh, okay, lovely. So, having just been distracted by geese flying over, and it's always the way wildlife does like to upstage us sometimes, which I'm really pleased to see. Could you tell us a little bit about how do you adapt sessions across early years all the way through to Key Stage 3? Because that's quite a wide span of educational context.
Yeah, so we have got a range of different trips that are tailored to different key stages, where we've looked at what the curriculum needs are and have put those trips in for those particular year group and age ranges. So, for example, in year 3, there's lots of work on rocks and soils and plants, and so those trips are kind of geared towards those age ranges, but they can be used for other groups as well. So we've kind of looked at what trips we put on for the different age groups, but then we can also adapt things for teachers and schools who say, oh, we'd really like to come and do this, but we don't fit into quite your mould that you have for the particular trip that you've got. What could you do for us that would fit in with what we need to get out of it for our particular learning objective? So, for example, we've had a middle school who contacted us who wanted to do some work on evolution, but because they're a middle school, they've got a lot more children and we can't have that many children on site at one time. So actually, instead of them coming to us, I'm going to go to them and I'm going to deliver the same material but 5 times over the day, so that all the children can experience the content, but without them having to come here on multiple different days in order to be able to get everybody in. So we can kind of offer bespoke things if it makes it useful for the school to be able to fit something in that they need, that we can't generate off our kind of standard trips, if that makes sense. I think the key thing is thinking about what kinds of things the children are going to be able to access. So, for example, we have a Marvellous Mini Beast trip, which is for Key Stage 1, but we do a workshop for Key Stage 2, which is also based on mini beasts and art, but we look at the terminology differently. So when we're talking about the insects with Key Stage 1, we're talking about mini beasts, we're talking about the fact that what their bodies are like. But when we're doing it with Key Stage 2, we're thinking about the fact that they've got a head, a thorax and an abdomen. We're talking about invertebrates. So we're changing the terminology, even though we're looking at the same thing, to make it more appropriate for children of different age ranges.
So there's a bit of gunfire going off in the background, and that's there's a police training centre just over the way, so nobody's shooting at geese, so we'll just get that point across now. So how important is it that outdoor learning is also linked to the curriculum?
It's important for us to make that distinction between outdoor learning and forest school, because lots of schools will have forest school, which is absolutely fantastic. I've been doing forest school for a number of years, and that is a child-led experience where we facilitate children's needs, desires, interests when they're outdoors, and a lot of it is to do with it being a really accessible space where children can develop their own risk assessment and take up those opportunities to explore what they're interested in making or learning or playing. And I always say play with a capital P. It's really important. So when they are playing, that is still learning. That's still really valuable time for so many different things, not just cognitive but social. It also helps with your motor skills. But forest school really does facilitate a more child-led approach that does not necessarily have to be curriculum linked. With the outdoor learning, it's this brilliant opportunity to take the needs of the curriculum and all of those learning objectives that have been really carefully organised into a learning progression, but to just incorporate those opportunities to take it outside. And sometimes it's just a case of doing your usual learning, but in an outside space, you're still having all of the benefits of the way that it just reduces your heart rate. It makes you feel calmer. It helps because you can remember being in a different space, so it makes that knowledge stick. But in terms of linking to the curriculum, it's really important for teachers and for school staff to know that what they're doing is purposeful and that it's worth doing because the young people in their care are still receiving the education that they need to receive. So with my Wilder Schools project, if you consider it a little bit like a Venn diagram, there's this 3-point approach, these 3 circles of the Wildlife Trust's goals of 1 in 4 schools taking positive action for nature by 2030. I've then also got the school's goals of the curriculum that needs to be delivered to these young people so that they get the rounded education that they need, that they deserve to be able to progress. And then also this opportunity to interact with young people and school staff to make it interesting and to ignite a passion for learning and a passion for nature and try and get all of those circles to overlap. But it does need, with outdoor learning, to have a much stronger curriculum focus so that the objectives are being achieved.
Right. Oh, okay, that's great. Right, we're going to take a little wander around the site, shall we? So we've just moved now into the field beyond the pond, and we've at the moment got a lovely show of dandelions, lots and lots and lots of dandelions, and the field is yellow. We've got a bit of blue sky as well in front of us, and lots of bird song, and it's such a lovely scene. And the trees are all starting to bush up. We've got horses in the field next to us. You might hear them. They're being quite noisy. There we go again. But sort of thinking now along the idea of creativity, there's obviously a very strong creative element alongside the science-based learning. So why is creativity such an important part of connecting children with nature?
I think it's really important. I think that if we were taking something like evolution, which could potentially historically be seen as maybe quite difficult and quite a dry subject, getting a creative element into that piece of work means that it's easier for the children to remember what they've learnt. We do a workshop which is based on the evolution of the forelimbs of animals, and so looking at how a human's hand is different to the paw of a badger or the forelimb of a deer, but actually there are those common characteristics between them, and we can look at how they're similar. And we do that through an art kind of activity where they do some printing, and the same with our mini beasts workshop that we do in schools for year 3. That again has got an art activity which is based on the work of Claire Youngs, and it looks at the thorax and the abdomen and the head of a mini beast, but the children get to create their own. So they do the learning initially about what the mini beasts are like and the invertebrates are like, what different features that they have, but then they have the art activity as the second part of the workshop, which then brings together those ideas and allows them to design their own creature. But that kind of is the moment that helps them to remember what all those different body parts are and how they fit together and where the legs go and what antenna they're going to put on, and does their invertebrate have a stinger or doesn't it, and it gives them that kind of creative freedom, which is really, really nice, and it helps to embed that learning and make it memorable for them.
Right, so we've just moved a little further into the field, and the horse has gone quiet now, which is quite nice. So what are the biggest barriers schools face when it comes to outdoor learning?
There's a few, and over time they are the same sorts of things that seem to keep cropping up. Part of how I've been tracking my project and learning more about it so that we can really pinpoint the successes and see it as a long-term thing to change the culture of schools into including more outdoor learning is that I've been gathering data about staff's background, their own nature connection, the way that they think the children in their care interact with outdoor learning, and also what the barriers are that they face. So based on the data that I've gathered and conversations that I've had with people, a lot of it is to do with time and a really tight timetable. There are so many things that need to be included in a school day, and it's sometimes difficult to allow for the extra time, and it does initially take a lot of time for making sure everyone's got the right clothing. Has everybody got their wellies on? Have we all been to the toilet? Do we need to get to the right place? It's also equipment, so sometimes it's resourcing of making enough time to create the resources, but also having the budget if there's anything specialist, or outdoor storage so that outdoor items can be kept dry. It's also staffing and ratios. Sometimes staff feel that it would be much easier if they had an extra person to be able to come and help for a few hours to be able to ensure the safety of these children, because the thing that's paramount is their safety. We need to make sure that they are safe and that they are healthy, and then that they are learning what they need to learn. So being able to make sure we have the right ratios is important. It also sometimes does come down to behaviour and being able to make sure that everyone is safe and also make sure that everybody is engaged. And we have had a massive increase over the last few years of children struggling with emotional regulation in a traditional indoor classroom environment. So sometimes staff will feel that it will be of benefit to those learners who struggle, and of benefit to everybody, but sometimes behaviour is a consideration that they have, and all of those things combined also sits underneath this umbrella of their confidence. So we can see that there are going to be benefits. They know that it would be worth doing, but it's trying to fit it in with the time. Do we have the right equipment? And then do the staff actually feel that they are competent to lead this and have the confidence to give it a try and to do it?
Right, okay. Right, we've just been joined by Megan, who's a trainee with the team. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, I'm Megan and I am the Wilder Schools Outdoor Learning Trainee. So I only started this in January. I know the Trust has had conservation trainees for some years now, so this is the first education traineeship that they've done. So I'm a bit of a guinea pig in that respect, but it's going really well. I spend 3 days a week with Lucy and in the Wilder Schools and the rest of the education and engagement team. So I'm about halfway through that now. So far, I have basically been able to support a lot of the wider team as well. So I get lots of experience with not just the education and engagement team, but I've been able to help out with reserves, I've sort of been introduced to a lot more of the wider team as well. I've been able to assist with the school trips that we have here at Smite. And also, primarily, I sort of help with Lucy and learn most of what she does. It is a volunteer position, but within that I've gained so much more experience, so many valuable skills that I probably would have paid for otherwise. So it's a really valuable experience for me.
Right, okay. So it's fair to say then that it's given you a solid grounding in the education sector within conservation then.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so what kind of impact are you seeing on the children after they take part, when I'm sort of thinking along the lines of confidence, curiosity and well-being?
It is wonderful that with my project I do get to build a relationship with the schools, and I get to hear from the staff the impact that more outdoor learning has had on them. It's important to say it's not a magic wand. For the majority of children, it's a really lovely thing to do and they are excited to do it, but it doesn't automatically mean that they remember everything and behave in a way that is desirable immediately. However, there have been lots of anecdotal bits of data that have been reported back to me about how the children are really engaged with what they're doing. They remember things, they're proud of the work that they do, and also the lesson following it, they're then more settled and regulated. So I had an example of a member of staff who was doing a poetry lesson with year 6, and traditionally some of the young people in that class would not have been particularly enthusiastic about writing and performing poetry. But we did a nature walk ahead of time. We really included their senses. We gave them a word bank of words that we generated together, but it was all nature focused. And there was a child in the class who historically wasn't very keen on writing, and when they did present some work it was minimal. And this child wrote nearly a whole side of A4 and then elected to rewrite it in best and illustrate it and present it to the head teacher, and they were given a certificate in assembly, and it was such a wonderful thing to celebrate because this child was so proud of the work that they'd done, because it was about something that they had connected to, and it wasn't just a case of I'm writing this poem because I've been told to. It's a case of I have interacted with nature and I felt something and this is real to me and I want to be able to express myself and record it, and they could see the purpose of why it was being written down and why they were being asked to do this activity. And in terms of children's well-being and being able to then settle afterwards, I think it's the fact that you've been able to actually physically move to get yourself ready to go outside, to walk to the field, to the forest school area, just to the other side of the playground, and that they have had a chance to get up and move around and have that brain break, that they can then have that calming atmosphere of being somewhere green and then move themselves back inside, and it just feels like a reset. So it's a real privilege that I've had the opportunity to develop a relationship with these schools over time, and to have members of staff who haven't even led the outdoor learning. Sometimes it's a cover supervisor or a TA who would have taken the children out, and then the teacher who gets the class afterwards goes, well, this is really different from yesterday. I can see the difference. And the children would report saying, someone else is going off to the forest school area, someone else is going outside, when's it's our turn? Because they want to be able to do it more, so it makes them more engaged as well. So it is wonderful to be able to see that.
Right, okay. So I'm just now starting to think about the future really, and sort of what happens outside of the programme in some respects, and what happens with the schools moving forward. So do schools tend to continue outdoor learning after your sessions, and how do you help them embed it long term?
I think one of the things that we're working on at the moment is thinking how the schools that have come to visit us here at Lower Smite Farm can take the learning that they've done here and take it back to school and go further with it. So we're looking at creating a bank of resources that go with each trip, so that there will be a lesson that will be provided that staff can take back. It can go over the kind of key things that we've looked at the farm, so it kind of embeds that learning. It means that the children have the ability to then have gone home to have reflected on what they've done, but then talk about it back in school. So that's one of the things that we're working on at the moment. It's one of those things that at the moment they come here, they visit, they have an amazing time, they book to come again the following year, which is brilliant. So we know that they're really, really enjoying what we're doing with them. But it's trying to get that kind of connectedness back into schools as well. It's where obviously when they come to us, it's a one-off visit at the moment, but it would be nice to know that that's being followed up, whereas with Lucy's project, where she's there all the time, she can see what's happening, she can see where the learning is continuing and where more outdoor learning is occurring. But we would really like to see that with our schools that come to visit us at the farm, to know that we're doing something to help with their outdoor learning back at school as well.
All right, okay. So really, last question from me. So now sort of looking ahead all the way out to 2030, what would success look like for the Wilder Schools project from your perspectives? Who wants to go first?
After you.
I think as kind of the education team as a whole, for us, we really want to know that more schools and more school children are being able to engage with nature, with being outdoors, whether that being coming to visit us here at the farm or whether it be through outdoor learning that they're doing in school. Obviously Lucy's project works with a certain number of schools each year, but that doesn't mean that every other school can't do outdoor learning. We want to be able to get those ideas across to more schools so that more children see the benefit of being outside, of more teachers understanding that actually it has a real impact for the children that they have in their care.
Yeah. So what about yourself?
Well, by 2030.
Yeah.
What's
the vision?
Wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had schools across the county where this is just what we do? It becomes part of the culture, and I think it would be marvellous if, in education circles at least, Worcestershire is known for doing outdoor learning and doing it well, and it becomes embedded, and we have the ability for everybody to have their wellies and their waterproofs stored at school, and that children know about composting and seasonality, and that they can identify a few bird calls, or that they understand the difference in habitats for different animals and why things are important, and that they care and that they like doing it. I think I would love it if we could have staff also feeling confident to take their learning outside, because it's not just the children who struggle that this will impact. It's not just the children full stop that this will impact. I really think that this will help staff to love their jobs and enjoy going to work and feeling that passion for teaching that so many of them already have, but just to be able to include a bit more nature would be a benefit, so that we can have a few more wild spaces and, dare I say it, wild children as well.
This is great. Yeah, we all love wild children. I'm still a wild child at heart, Absolutely. To be honest. That's why I like standing in fields recording podcasts. So thank you very much for today. It's been a real insight, and it's always fascinating to find out about what people do here at Smite and when in the outreach as well. So thank you both, Kat and Lucy, for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have a chance to talk about it, so thank you for asking.
No, that's great. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Wild Worcestershire. We've been speaking with Lucy and Kat from the education team, with a brief appearance from Megan, who's one of the education trainees, and they're all helping to shape the next generation of outdoor learning. We've explored how the Trust's education work is evolving through Wilder Schools, and how that impact now stretches beyond a single visit. We've heard that Kat welcomes children to Lower Smite Farm, giving them direct hands-on experience of nature, while Lucy takes that learning into schools, helping it continue where the children are every day. And I think it's this combination, the site-based learning and in-school delivery, that helps turn a moment of connection into something much more long-lasting. And as is often the case when you spend time outdoors, nature has its own small part to play in everything that we do. As we heard earlier, we had a passing moment from some Canada geese that reminded us that this work happens in a living, changing landscape. And that's why it matters so much and why we need to protect it. So if today's conversation has inspired you and you'd like to find out more about the Wilder Schools project or the wider work of the Trust in general, you can visit the Worcestershire Wildlife Trust website. The link will be in the description below. So that's it really from me. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and we'll see you next time on the Wild Worcestershire podcast. So until then, goodbye.